Do you know what's going on?
I think so, sort of.
Okay, good.
There you go, we go. Hello, and welcome to the Scribehound Gardening podcast with me, James Alexander-Sinclair, and
Me, Joe Swift.
together today we are going to be talking about lawns and grass and all sorts of stuff like that.
And fake grass too. And we'll be answering your questions that you've sent in. James and I will give our view on that.
Gardening can sometimes be bewildering, which is why I am so pleased that we have snuggled up with our friends at Crocus for this podcast series. As you probably know, Crocus is the most trusted online gardening brand. Their website is stuffed full of advice, inspiration, and of course, plants and products to help bring your dream garden to life. Check out Crocus's website to find out more. If you find something that you just cannot resist, use the code SCRIBEHOUND20 at the checkout to enjoy 20% off all full-price plants until October the 31st, which is, of course, Halloween. This morning, when I left to come here, my lawn that has been a bit of a mess for the winter is now just getting itself just in a state where it's perfect. And the reason for that is Cressida. You've met Cressida.
Yes, the robo mow.
Cressida is a
robo mow.
And she was brought out of hibernation. She's like a tortoise. Oh. She goes in the shed and she sleeps for the winter. So, I mean, sometimes you go in there and she might not be there. I think at that moment she's gone to Tenerife, but she comes back, and she came back, and we were on. I had a week in Cornwall, came back, and it was just the right moment for Cressida to come out of hibernation.
Lovely.
So I went and I wook her up very gently and
Did she have to charge her up? Did she hold any battery from last year?
Yes, she does. She holds enough to do it. But you don't want to start her off too quickly. No. So she came and I gave her a little bit of an oil massage just to loosen up her limbs and do all this kind of...
Did you change her blades?
I changed her blades, little tiny blades.
Yeah, she liked that.
And then she went off and away. She had a manicure. She'd had the whole lot. She was off and gone. But it is pretty amazing how quickly she gets the whole thing under control. I mean, I do not have, in any way, shape or form, a perfect lawn. And neither do you, because I've seen it.
No, my lawn is quite wild. But yours is pretty good.
It's short, but it's
well. Hang on, no. What's good? What's a good lawn? You've got an old-fashioned, manicured green sward, and actually, they're a bit out of fashion these days, James.
They are, I know.
They're really out of fashion.
I know.
They're short. They're monocultural. They're not great for biodiversity.
Hang on, no.
You know,
stop
do you water it? Do you water it and feed it?
Stop.
Why? Because it hurts.
No, it doesn't hurt. I'm going back.
It hurts.
Because it's not monocultural. My lawn is not monocultural. What I don't do, it's not a bloody bowling green. I'm not there.
It's pretty good.
It's full of buttercups. It's full of daisies. It's full of...
Oh, it's weedy. You got a weedy lawn.
I've got a weedy lawn. I've got a mossy lawn in place. Got a weedy lawn. And that, I think, is fine. Actually, it's okay because so I've got my garden's not as big as yours, but it's a reasonable size. I haven't got the time to plant up the entire garden, and it needs some. It's quite nice to have a sort of open space in the middle of it. It's like a reverse oasis where you sort of you suddenly appear and there's this calm, this woodland glade. This clearing in which Bambi's mother... No, she doesn't come in. Don't let Bambi's mother into the open glade. Keep her in the woodland. But, you got this... And that's pretty much what a lawn is. But, in times gone by, I remember... years ago when I was a landscaper, we would do lawn. You did lawn treatments too.
I used to lay lawns, maintain lawns. I was like the lawn ninja. I could have been the groundsman at the Arsenal. I was that good.
Ooh, that's a
seriously.
whole thing.
Aeration, scarification, top dressing, mowing, feeding, watering, raking. I was, and also, little bumps, and I absolutely loved it. I got obsessed with it, like men do. James.
I know. No, I did the same thing. We would go round in the autumn time around Dulwich in the truck, and there'd be a cement mixer on the back of the truck.
Yeah.
And you mix up this sort of mixture, and I have been ashamed to admit it was basically peat at that time. You mix up peat and sand. And bone meal, and then go the old scarification thing. Have you ever tried scarifying by hand? Because it's the most exhausting thing you could ever do.
Yes, I've done loads.
Oh God, it's horrible.
It's a brilliant workout, actually. It's a really good workout, scarifying by hand. But then there are all scarification machines. They're like mowers.
Yeah, which is much better. I was never really searching for the god bod doing a workout.
No, that's not why I did it. I did it because it was just work.
Yeah, but we used to rent a machine, stick it on the back of the truck, cement mixer to mix up all the stuff.
Yeah.
Aeration. That again is if you try and do that by hand.
Yeah,
with a fork.
Yes.
It takes forever.
No, but then the small lawn you can do with a fork. Or do you remember they invented those shoes?
Yes.
They shoes, they used to sell them at the flower shows with spikes on the bottom of your shoes.
Yeah.
And you're meant to walk all over your lawn and aerate your lawn.
Exactly. It's like a pair of Birkenstocks with spikes on the bottom of it. It's like running Birkenstocks. And you would wander around the place. And I did try them once, and you can't get your foot out. So that's also exhausting. But we used to in order to just try and make the perfect lawn. And the other thing is that I remember when I first started gardening, which was a very long time ago, you go in the garden centre and there's a chemical there to kill worms.
Yeah.
Because the worms would come up and put worm casts.
They use them on golf courses. They use them. It suppresses them. It suppresses them, and it just forces them down. Actually, so it stops them coming up to the top. And how
does it do that?
Oh, I don't know.
Is it like a sort of tranquilizer?
Well, I think it sort of forces them out to the side, but it probably kills a lot of them because you do see dead worms and everything. So okay, so let's have a potted history
of the lawn.
Okay.
So the lawn started off, I reckon, as a field, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
And then how would you cut it? You would cut it with a sheep.
Capability, Bratton. He borrowed the landscape.
Yeah.
Okay, the field beyond, and you'd have a ha-ha.
Yes.
Right? You'd have basically a ditch would stop all the sheep and wildlife coming into your garden and nicking all your sandwiches.
They were there. Yeah. That's the thing. So you're looking out and you've got a seamless view.
Yeah, you got a seamless view, exactly. And they would chew all the grass, keep it quite short.
Chew.
They would.
I mean, chew is like chewing gum. It's like they would graze it.
Well,
they would eat it. They didn't just chew it and spit it out like a wad of tobacco.
They chew it 50 times before they swallowed it because it's much better for them.
And then it would go through their ruminant stomachs. Okay,
exactly.
So sheep and cattle and horses.
But then, to extend the view, so where the sheep and the cattle weren't chewing the cud, okay, it is a term.
No, but that's
eating grass.
I'm sorry, we're going to have
on the domestic side, on the house side, you would have to keep the grass short somehow.
Correct, because that's where you want to walk, and you want to walk in your nice shoes and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and that would be with a scythe, or it would be with a pair of like snippy things.
Scissors?
Yeah, no, not scissors, but those sort of shears. Shears.
Yeah.
Before it, and that was where the sort of lawn was invented, really.
Yeah.
As an extension out to the fields, and then the lawnmower was invented because these were large estates. They weren't small domestic residential gardens.
Proper houses.
They were big, proper houses.
Yeah.
Like all your friends live.
Yeah. Everything like that.
Yeah, all those big estates and everything. And then the push mower was invented, so everyone could now have a lawn. But before the push mower,
you used to have a pull mower which you put on a little donkey, and then and the donkey because it's got sort of shoes on its feet and would dent. They used to have little socks that the donkey would wear to stop its feet sinking into the grass. Yeah, so the donkey would pull this thing over. Sometimes it would be people. Sometimes you think, oh, we got a couple of undergardeners. They're not doing anything. They strap them to the mower and they can drag it across like that way. But then it became.
You're still talking large gardens, you see, because you would have a donkey.
But that's how it begins. All begins with large gardens, and then when your friend Thingy.
But what's his name? Budding. Yes, he was an engineer.
He was an engineer,
and he invented the first push mower.
And do you know where he got the idea from?
He got the idea from
He got the idea from treating cloth in Stroud. So Stroud, Gloucestershire, lots of wool, all that kind of stuff. And they had this sort of machine that would just take the nap off the cloth and make it a little bit finer. And he looked at this and thought, I could think of it. Yeah, it's exactly. He would go round and round.
Cylinder.
It's a cylinder thing. And he thought, I know. I could use that. I could adapt that. What can I use it for? And first of all, he thought, I could use it for cutting people's hair. And that was a mistake.
Yeah, I know. Well, actually, yeah. They told me it would grow back.
And then eventually he worked out, oh, I know, we could use that for cutting grass. Wouldn't that be brilliant? And it would save the donkeys a whole load of work, and they wouldn't sink, and everybody could. And then, as you so rightly say, then it becomes available to everybody.
And then, yes, so the mass market is available to have this push mower. There's no motor on it. And then, I can't remember when, 50 years later or something, there was one invented with an engine.
Yeah.
And an engine, still a cylinder mower.
Briggs and Stratton.
Briggs and Stratton engine, still going today.
Yeah.
Still power, sort of, all the good mowers. Are we allowed to say that?
Well, we can ask.
They might sponsor the podcast.
There you
Briggs
go.
And Stratton.
The Briggs and Stratton. I tell you what we could do.
The Briggs and Stratton
You could
gardening
be
podcast.
Briggs and I could be Stratton.
Yeah. No, I want to be Stratton.
Okay, you can be Stratton. I'll be Briggs. It'll be like more.
No, I'm happy
more
to be Briggs, actually.
Okay, so they did that,
and then everyone was just mowing away, and that was it. And they had been mowing away ever since. Then the American sort of yard, the golf course, the large Americans really got into it. Suburban American really got into mowing.
Yeah.
50s, 60s. So they had to have they are called yards, aren't they? They don't really have gardens.
They don't have gardens.
They don't really have any plants. It's just lawns.
But they also
and a picket fence.
They also have bylaws. The council says you must cut your grass. You're not allowed to rewild your front garden in some parts of America.
Even today.
I think in today it might be, in some places it might be getting a little bit better. I'm not convinced that Mr. Trump would allow too much rewilding of his front garden of Mar-a-Lago. I think that there's a lot of mowing that goes on there. There's a lot of Mr. Briggs and Mr. Stratton or their equivalents. But there is a practical reason why people wanted short grass. It's because it's relatively easy to maintain.
It's cheap to go down. I mean, compared to hard surface or so it is, and it's free draining. Obviously, water goes through it, and you can play on it. You can, it's a family surface. It's seen as a sort of practical family surface and all that. And actually, if you just start mowing the wilderness, you end up with a lawn.
Of course.
So there's areas of my garden which have been mud, pretty much soil, and then grass just starts sort of seeding itself around it. You don't actually have to sow any grass seed, and then you start cutting it, and you basically cut. If you keep it short, you keep all the weeds out, and the grass just spreads, and you end up with grass.
Yeah,
basically.
So I think that what's happening at the moment, in the way that gardening works, is that we're trying to get away from monocultures, as you said. So your first step to that is a slightly weedy lawn. So don't kill any weeds in your lawn. So I mean, there are chemicals which we really do not approve of.
Yeah.
And you let the buttercups grow, and who the hell cares? It doesn't really matter. It's still soft and nice for your babies to run.
A lot of people care. A lot of people cannot let go of the great British stripy lawn. Yes, because I was on a train. I came down this morning from Yorkshire, where I was yesterday, and I look into people's gardens, and most people will have a lawn that is closely mowed, and and it's a male thing. They like stripes on their lawn. They just do, and there is a movement, thank God. Young people have seen into biodiversity, sustainability. No Mow May, we've got to talk about as well, which is an initiative where councils, verges, roundabouts, and encouraging people just to let their. You don't like it, do you? I can tell you don't like No Mow May.
I do like
Cressida
No Mow May.
is going to have to go into her shed for the whole of May.
She's not going to like that. She's not going to like that.
She's just getting going.
No, but it's fine. I think that I approve thoroughly of No Mow May, except I just don't think that May is long enough. I think it needs to go further than that. So what happens? Let's just imagine that you are a beetle, all right? Joe the beetle.
John, George.
Joe, one of them. Joe, the fifth beetle that nobody ever heard of, is wandering around the garden.
Yeah.
In May, and the grass is getting longer, and the weeds are getting weedier, and the wildflowers are getting wildier, and all that kind of stuff.
And I'm
Joe's
happier and happier. I'm thinking, this is for me.
I'm loving this.
I'm a home. This is my habitat.
I'm home. He goes out and he finds a beautiful lady beetle called Josephina. And Joe and Josephina go off and they make a little house underneath some weeds.
Yeah.
But little do they know that an apocalypse looms over the whole
June the
thing.
1st.
June the 1st is coming. June the 1st, what happens is that the garden owner says, right, done that with May. I'm just going to go and mow everything now. And poor Joe and Josephina and their little babies, Jim and Jethro and Juliet and Jemima, get evicted because they're not there. So if you're going to do No Mow May, then you need to sort of think about doing No Mow June, July and August. So that's letting the whole thing go a little bit wilder.
I think the initiative is that some wildflowers will seed around a little bit, that there is a habitat for insects to breed in, but there is still benefits. There are still benefits to this, and it's not that you have to do it throughout the whole year. But I do think it's making people think differently about that, because they then might just mow a path through it, rather than mow the whole thing down. They'll just think, well, actually, I don't need all this mown grass anyway. I'll halve the amount of grass that we play bowls or croquet on or whatever it might be, and have a picnic on, and the rest of it can be long, and I'll just mow a couple of paths through it. That really is beneficial. You happy with that?
No, I'm more. I have to have that at home. In that, yes, we have the mowy bit that Cresta deals with, but there's shaggy edges all over the place, and there's bits where the grass is never ever cut, and the bits where there are paths of wood, and I am as
and that's
much
the way
in favour
gardens
of
are going. They're
possible.
looking shaggier, they're looking looser, and that's the way gardens are going. And it's less work, even for Cressida, I'm afraid. It's just generally less work for everybody, and it's better for the environment, and I think it's a good thing.
It needs to be encouraged, but I just think that the idea of May, end of May, bosh, we cut it all down, is difficult, particularly on verges and roundabouts. There's no reason why they can't carry on for the rest of the year doing all those kind of stuff. So I think that even in the smallest garden, there should be room for a shaggy edge. It's not quite a slogan, is it?
I like a shaggy edge. There's nothing wrong with a shaggy edge.
I love a shaggy fringe.
We could have heart shaggy edges.
Yeah, so we need more
shaggy edge.
I heart shaggy edges, but I also understand that weedy lawns are okay as well. If you can cut them short. Yeah. There's a patch of daisies in the middle of my lawn that's enormous, really quite a big patch of daisies, but that my daughter is very fond of, and every time she's at home. And Cressida runs over this patch of daisies.
Can you not set Cressida a bit higher?
She's gone a little bit higher, so she actually cruises over the top of it. Particularly, the other thing is that later on in the season, when maybe it's been a bit dry, and you don't want to cut your grass too low. You want to let it come up a little bit in order to protect it and to keep it going. So,
but people, when they go on holiday, they literally they cut it really short, thinking that's the thing to do, and that'll scalp it and often make it go yellow. And actually, if it's really dry weather, you should let it grow a little bit longer.
Definitely. I think there is room for the sort of the football pitch, or the place where that sort of nice feeling. It's a warm, and you got to put a rug out. You remember your children when they were babies sitting there waving their little fat arms and legs in the air and on the grass, and then there's a ladybird and little Joe and Josephina and Jemima and all that lot scuttling around the place. There's room for both of these. There's room for place for people to play, and a place for wildlife to thrive within lawns and grasses.
But do you think people are changing their attitude towards the Great British Lawn?
I hope so. I think that we have very definitely seen there was a trend. I mean, there still is a certain amount, but less and less, to actually dig up all lawn and put artificial turf down, which is something.
Hang on a minute.
Yeah, that's really not a good idea. I don't think I've ever done that.
Have you never ever laid? I've laid artificial grass. We used to call it astroturf, but it's a trade name. I've put it on roof gardens. It's been specified by garden designers, not me, but when we were building for others. Basically plastic grass. I've never put it in a garden, but there's a huge trend. I mean, the last few years, people think it's the answer. I've got a dog, and what am I going to do? So, and then I can't keep the grass because it's much more practical for my kids because they want to play football and all.
That's a good point.
Yeah, well. It's just horrible stuff. It never rots. It's
if
permanent.
You have a dog, your astroturf, your fake turf is going to stink of dog piss for the rest of your life.
It absolutely stinks. The whole stuff stinks anyway, because now they put sand or those sort of. I mean, I used to play football on the one where you put little rubber chips in between, little rubber balls in between. And when it's hot, it stinks. Why would you want that in your garden? I don't get it. And also, people go wall to wall. It's like wall to wall wallpaper or carpeting. They do that. There's no room for plants. They just have the whole thing astroturfed over the whole garden and then put a couple of pots on the top of it and think that that's sort of a garden. Well, that's,
I think it's a really, really bad idea.
It sounds a bit snobby, but I hate that stuff. I really hate the stuff, and I think it should be banned. I think actually it should be banned.
I think it sort of has. I mean, the RHS have banned it at shows. It has.
Well, the Society of Garden Designers, of which we're both
Garden
members.
and Landscape Designers. We've got a new name.
Okay.
We're both
now.
Yeah.
They don't approve of it. I don't know whether they've actually banned it, but there's.
Well, I think you can say definitely that we don't like it, and it's horrible stuff because yes, I understand that if you've got 17 children all playing football, then your grass is not going to survive very long. But that's still not a reason to put down plastic stuff. Because it really is not good for anybody or anything. So we can shelve that. We're not going to have anything to do with plastic grass. In fact, we're not going to mention it again.
What about the fruit and veg guy down the road? Do you remember he used to have there used to be a bit of astroturf?
But that was just for there.
Apples and pears and bananas.
That was historic.
On there. Yeah.
It's like, but old fake grass. I mean, I remember just lacerating the side of my leg, falling over. Oh, it's not much fun being tackled on that stuff.
No. I so often Thursday nights I'd often come back with bloody knees.
It's not good.
No. Not good
okay, so that's that. So we come back to real grass. We want people to have lawns that suit their lifestyles, but you need to realise that gardens are not just about us.
Can I just also say, a lawn in a lot of gardens is the most impractical surface ever. So it's just because it's like the default go-to surface. Think, I've got a family, got kids, I'll have a lawn. Actually, when I had a small garden in Hackney, my kids were young. Actually, what happens is it just turns into a mud patch.
Yeah.
Okay, 6 months of the year at least we are in winter. That lawn is wet. Okay, it's impractical. You actually stop the kids going out because you're going to absolutely ruin the lawn, and then you're going to come back and you're not actually allowed to pressure wash children anymore.
Are you not?
No, you can hose them, but you can't need to pressure wash them.
Okay, can you scrub them?
You can scrub them, yeah. You can give them a bit of a scrub.
No J's fluid or anything like that.
But it's really it's not a practical surface for our climate. Actually, it's fine, nice in the summer, and most town and city gardens are quite shady. The smaller a lawn gets, the more impractical it becomes, because the more wear per square metre, so it all becomes really compacted. It goes rock hard in summer, and it's just a mud bath in winter. So it doesn't really work on that level either.
No, so small lawns, bad idea. If you have a slightly larger garden, then yes, have your lawns, but don't let any chemicals anywhere near it. Don't try and keep it weed free. Just live with the fact that there are daisies.
But there are these companies now that go round, don't they? They'll go round and maintain. They'll do what we did in the old days. They'll do the aerating and the scarifying, and they'll do the feeding and all that. And they basically go around the country doing that, and it's quite cheap.
Yeah.
Per square metre. I mean, I know someone who got them in, and I was amazed. They come twice a year or something, and they do all of that work for it.
And that's fine, provided that they don't actually put chemicals on the lawn as well.
Well, they do though. They do.
Well, then we don't like them. We don't approve of them at all. We don't want that to happen. We want our lawns to be slightly wilder. But the most important thing is that, as you said before, not all lawns have to be short. You can have longer grass. If you've got corners, let your grass grow. Let it all hang free. Yeah. And let's encourage shaggy edges. Shaggy edges is our message for today.
Hang free, shaggy edges.
Yeah.
And also watering, okay? So dry summers. You have a dry... I can't remember the last dry summer we had. But people water their lawns, and if a lawn goes yellow, it will, the minute it starts raining, you have a good rain again, it's going to green up. It's a complete waste of water, which is a precious resource, actually.
Yeah, no, which is again one of the problems that they have in the United States, in that a lot of their states are not suited for growing grass.
Yeah.
And so what they're doing is they're pumping out aquifers it's for you and your bloody golfing friends.
Well, this is what I was just about to say. I've got a dilemma here.
Yeah, you have.
I have this thing. I have this tension within me, and I because I like to play a bit of golf. And let's face it, what is a golf course? A golf course is a manicured. I mean, on the greens, you want it to be really tightly mowed, and on the tees as well.
Yeah.
Okay, a bit of rough on the side, but there's not a lot of room for wildlife in there, is there?
Well, there must be in the rough, isn't there?
Yeah, in the rough, but no, it's all sort of cut to, a couple of inches really. It's not good. There's not a lot going on. You got to want to try and find your golf ball in there, but and also, they water, they irrigate, and they often feed, and they use a lot of machinery, petrol powered machinery on it. So what do I do? I actually, I need some help. I do need some help here. And don't tell me to give up golf.
No, I'm not going to tell you to give up. You could just do putting.
No, that's not golf.
You could do crazy golf.
That's not golf.
It's the same kind of thing.
I'm not going to the seaside and doing a little bit of crazy golf.
You could spend more time in the rough.
Well, I spend enough time in the rough anyway, actually.
That'll do. You say, I'm not going near those mown bits. I'm going to do all my golfing in the rough.
Does that work? Yeah, but I feel bad.
I know. Well, I think that
it's the same with football pitches, cricket pitches, isn't it? All those sports pitches.
All those sports pitches that are now so perfect. I remember if I'm right in the middle of writing a piece for Scribehound Gardening about this very subject, is that when I was playing football a lot of the time.
I didn't even know you ever played football.
Oh, professionally. When I was about 10, I was a goalkeeper. I was quite a good goalkeeper.
Were you?
Well, I was quite a good goalkeeper at one school. Then I moved schools.
Were you tall for your age then?
No, that was my problem.
Okay.
I moved.
You could be lobbed.
I was in 20 yards. No. My primary school, they had age-appropriate goal sizes. Okay, so I could leap around the place and I could do it. And then I moved to a next school, and they had full-size goals. And so I turned up, and they said, "Well, where do you play?" I said, "Goalkeeper," and I was 4'10", and they laughed at me. And that was the last time I played football. But the pitches at that point were not these beautifully mown things that we have nowadays. It was mostly mud. Even in the first division, Premier Division, they were basically playing up to their ankles in mud.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah. I know. On YouTube, I get all these feeds from YouTube and Instagram because I watch quite a bit of football. And you get this stuff from the 70s, and the ball would literally stick, in a puddle, and it was just completely unplayable and sort of unacceptable now.
But
we
still won the World Cup playing with those. I mean, that was in the summer, I guess, wasn't it?
Well, that was in the summer.
So that was in the summer, because the World Cup final in 1966.
Yeah,
my birthday.
Oh,
they put it on especially for my.
They did it. They won it for you.
Yeah, they won it for me. It was my birthday present at that time. So we have a problem with golf with golf courses that we'll have to come back to. All sports pitches we'll have to come back to, because you can't really play football in mud any longer, and you can't be in the rough all the time. But the thing that people can actually get hold of now is actually their lawns at home. If it's really small, dig it up.
Yeah, plant it, and that. I mean, there are solutions. We're not going to go into sort of gardener's world territory here, but you can plant it up with some stepping stones and just make life a lot easier. For much more interesting, much better for biodiversity, and actually a more interesting garden generally.
And then, if you've got a slightly bigger garden, leave a shaggy edge.
That's the catchphrase.
Okay, look, we got cards.
Oh, hang on. We share them out though.
Yes, yeah.
You're not just asking me.
You're going to pick a card, any card. What are you going to do? Okay, so you've got to follow the lady.
You've got to shuffle them.
Yeah, I'm shuffling.
Come on.
I'm shuffling.
I know you. You'll have had them all.
I'm shuffling. So which one would you like?
I might need my glasses for this. I can't. Well, I can read it at arm's length.
Okay. Do you want to start it off, or shall I start?
I'll start it off. Go on then.
Pick a card. Any old card. There you are.
Okay, here we go.
Okay, what do you got?
I do need my glasses. Oh, look at that. They just appeared from nowhere.
Miraculously. Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Okay.
Okay, right, here we go. Oh, I've got two questions on here. Anya, 45, from Bristol. What's the most overrated garden trend you've seen in recent years, and what's one you wish would come back? Good question, actually.
It's a good question. I get
trends.
I get a bit weirded over trends.
Well, we don't like trends.
We don't like trends because we don't fully understand trends. Although there are definitely garden trends. There are. I mean, we've talk about anything we talk about that was there then and isn't there now. I guess means that a trend has moved. But people quite often ring me up and say, "Oh, what are the garden trends for Chelsea this
year?" Every year I get asked, "What are the trends? What are we going to see? What's new? What's hot at Chelsea this year?" And the problem with gardening is that by the time you've done something, if it's trendy, it's out of fashion and it becomes, it's passé. So personally, with my designs, I try and go for something a bit more classic, that's has got a good longevity, ageless, just sort of is always going to work. No, I'm very wary of trend.
That's not the question. She's not saying, "Oh, what do? You ageless designs." She wants to know about trends. So, okay, let's think of a trend. Think of a trend. Let's think of the trend for
the most overrated garden trend. So I think she's on our side. I think Anya's with us. The most overrated garden trend that we saw. Well, okay, come on. There's the blue glass chippings. Right? I mean,
but that's a classic, isn't it?
No, the blue glass mulch. Chippings.
No, there was that. That a lot of that comes out of Ground Force and Alan and Charlie.
Yeah, but it was a trend, and you actually went into gardens and someone had pink sort of chippings, or the whole crushed CD thing, and all these sort of chippings, and basically it was a way of recycling a load of old rubbish and people selling it and thinking the gardening market might be a market where we would take these bulk bags of rubbish and spread them all over their garden.
And that's
that's overrated, completely overrated gardening trend.
Yeah, I think also the whole idea of different coloured gravels and different coloured sort of anything that's artificial, pretending to look natural. So weird white, pink CDs as mulches. The other thing is about plants. You remember a sort of sprayed succulents and things like that, and plants that had tinsel put sort of inflicted upon them.
Well, there's also those heathers that you see in the big DIY shops. I saw some last year. They're actually sprayed.
Yeah.
Is that a trend, or is that just that? I mean, in my book, that's just naff.
I think it's an aberration.
Exactly.
And it shouldn't be allowed. But I guess you could. Somebody thought that it was a good idea. Therefore, it is a trend. As regards big trends, not all trends are bad. Some of them are good. I mean,
that is true.
The whole idea of gardening for wildlife is, to a certain extent, a trend, but it's not one that's going to go away quickly. So is a trend something that's here today, gone tomorrow?
Yeah.
Rather like Ipswich.
What do you mean Ipswich?
Sorry.
Ipswich Football Club?
Yes.
Oh, I see. Right.
Yeah. I thought it would be quite a topical sporting analogy, which I'm not usually known for.
No, I know. You sort of lost me there, really. Do you remember there was a year at Chelsea where there was cow parsley everywhere because it was so cold that no one could get anything into flower, not even the magicians that are the growers. It was just the sun didn't come out, nothing heated up, and it was just, let's just put cow parsley everywhere, which sort of started a trend for that naturalistic, cow parsley look.
Yeah, there was that, and then but a number of the trends like that happened. I remember there was a year 2003 or 4 when there was alliums everywhere.
Yeah.
And there are particular plants that turn up, and it is not necessarily because it's a trend. It is, as you say, because the weather has meant that things either are too far advanced or too far back.
Yeah.
So I think what we should do with this question is say we don't really care about trends.
No, we don't really care about trends. Sort of trends and gardening don't. What one we wish would come back? Well, we don't like trends, so we don't want any of them to come back.
No, we just want people to be individual and to do what makes them happy.
Exactly.
Samira from Cardiff, is gardening genuinely good for your mental health, or is that just something that magazines say? I'm curious what you both think.
Well, I can only talk for myself.
I think that's probably the right answer, yeah.
And I would say most definitely it is good for my mental health. It's for all sorts of health, really, physical health, mental health. For me, I just find it incredibly grounding. It's liberating. It's the creative aspect of it. I lose myself. I'm so in the moment. I think, mental health and this whole sort of well-being and mindfulness, which are two sort of buzzwords at the moment, aren't they? It's really, gardening just encapsulates all of that for me. I always say it's good for my soul. And I know magazines have picked up on it, but I think that's a good thing. And I think actually COVID, when COVID, a lot of people started gardening in COVID and found it incredibly helpful. Whether it's a balcony or window box or a small garden or anything, they found gardening incredibly helpful. And yeah, I'm evangelical about it in that respect.
I think that's definitely the case. I think it's something that people who were gardeners, who have been gardeners for a long period of time, we knew that.
Yeah.
We knew automatically that if you feel rubbish and you go outside and put your hands in the soil or just go for a walk or do anything like that, you will feel better. And now magazines have picked up on it. It's a big thing, and I think that the science is now following that. And you know, for example, we've both designed gardens for Horatius Garden, which is this extraordinary charity which puts gardens into spinal injury units. And obviously, an awful lot of the recovery from a spinal injury is not just a physical recovery; it's also a mental recovery. And the evidence is there that the patients who have been in units where there is a garden and they have the freedom and the ability to go outside and to touch plants and to feel the sun on their face and to be surrounded by colour and by scent and by people who are happy, that will make their recovery faster and they will leave hospital quicker.
Yeah.
And I think that's...
And they've done studies on it, which is interesting because actually, you know, to have the numbers that back it up with surveys and studies is important, and it's always been a bit flaky. You know, this knowledge has been, oh yeah, well, I find it very helpful for my mental health, but actually they are putting numbers on it, which means you can go for funding as well. So you have to actually have those numerical figures to say we need X amount of £1,000 because you're competing against, I don't know, a dialysis machine or something within the National Health. National Health don't pay, the NHS doesn't pay for these places, but to have those stats is really important to show how good it is.
And the RHS has done similar sort of, you know, they're the new science centre, it's got a smart name and I completely forgot what it is, at Wisley. They're doing experiments again on behaviour and how plants affect people's mental health, how being in a garden affects people's mental health. So the basic thing, you start off with go outside, you will feel better. And then the refinement of that is be amongst plants, go and do some gardening. It's these sort of different levels. So I think the answer to Samira from Cardiff's question is yes. Yeah. Gardening is generally good for your mental health.
I mean, magazines are trying to sell magazines, basically.
They are. Are magazines good for your mental health?
I don't really read many magazines, so I don't know, because I'm out and I'd rather be gardening than reading a magazine about gardening.
There is one magazine that I happen to know that you were the cover star on.
Really?
Yeah. Were you on the front of a Big Fish Monthly or something like that?
Oh, Sea Angler Monthly.
I knew there was something.
Thanks for bringing that up. That's correct.
I thought that I would.
That's one magazine I would definitely read.
I think that one is good for your fishing is good for your mental health as well.
Very good. You're out. I don't think it's necessarily gardening. I think it's being out in the natural world. Okay. Yep. So you know, forest bathing. This whole idea of forest bathing is just, you know, being in a woodland or a forest and you know, lying down and taking in the light and the natural surroundings. Walking, obviously, but you know, wild swimming, gardening, fishing, just being out in a landscape in the natural world is a wonderful thing.
I think that's absolutely right. Okay, so now I've got Bobby from Brighton.
Bobby,
alliterative, which helps as well. Bobby from Brighton. Oh, this is a question for Joe. How many houseplants is too many? Be honest. I've got 42 and counting, and my flatmates are staging an intervention. How many houseplants do you have?
Well, all the houseplants we have, Kathy, my wife, looks after houseplants because she really loves looking after houseplants, and I'm usually outside dealing with this great big garden that we've got. So we've probably got about 20, 25, I think, but they're quite small ones. There's nothing massive. We've got a Dracaena that's quite big. I don't think there's a limit to how many houseplants. I mean, the intervention sounds a bit heavy, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think 42 is perfectly reasonable.
Well, it depends on the size. It's 42 in a tiny, tiny little room or a tiny flat might be, you know, too many.
Oppressive.
But if it's a sort of large flat house, you spread them around a little bit. That's fine.
I think so. I think it's one of those things that people who live in flats and they want to garden and they don't have a garden or a place to do it, then an indoor plant is obviously a way of doing it. It is very definitely something that is much more popular now. That's a trend, isn't it, really? But a good one. It's much more popular now than it used to be. And I find, you know, Archie, my eldest son, is got, I think, probably more than 42 houseplants in his house.
Wow, we need to intervene.
I think we do. We need
to go around
take some of them.
Yeah,
basically.
I think there should be a maximum. Actually, I think one person should only have 30. Because if you know, otherwise, I
don't think that's fair. No, I think what we want to campaign for is you know, universal liberation for houseplants. And you can have as many houseplants as you want, provided that you don't murder them. Which is what I mean. Okay, I think but I have a tendency to kill houseplants.
Okay.
And I don't think I'm the only person.
A tendency?
Yeah, I don't do it on purpose.
Oh, okay, because a tendency sounds like you might be some sort of mass murderer of houseplants.
Sudden urge to do so. But I just don't think that I just don't think I'm good with houseplants.
Well, because I think it's because you're a bit like me. You want to be outside doing the stuff that grows in soil in the ground rather than houseplants. Everything's in a pot. That's the thing about houseplant. Everything's grown in a pot. So you got to create the conditions, as Jane Perrone said. Who's the Scribehound houseplant. Right, you've got to create those conditions that they thrive in, and I would just rather give a plant natural conditions. But not everybody, like you say, has a garden or an outside space.
That's it.
And still wants to grow stuff.
So it's very, very good for people who are renting flats or houses, and the other, because they're also portable and they can move along. So you can put a lot of love into it. So I think Bobby from Brighton, you just rock your houseplants. Okay? Yeah. Get as many as you want. 42 is not enough.
Not enough
for us.
Not enough.
How many houseplants is enough? Joe says
142.
Yeah, I think that's at least.
Yeah. It's quite good. It's like playing. We could be playing a little board game. Maybe we'll have a little board game. Scribehound podcast, the board game.
Oh, we can do
with little gnomey things that go and slates. Yeah, and we can ask questions. And then,
and keep moving, and somebody can win.
Okay, right. Nancy. Nancy from Devon, what's the weirdest gardening myth you've ever heard? And was it actually true?
Oh, there's Jekka's one. Jekka tells the story.
Jekka
McVicker.
The herbalist.
Queen of herbs.
Yeah.
Has this story, and I think she wrote about it on Scribehound Gardening quite recently, is that in the springtime, the way that you know that the ground is warm enough to sow seeds is that you go and basically drop your kecks and drop your knickers and sit on the soil. Yeah. And if it feels warm enough and comfortable, then the soil is ready for seeds. And if it's still freezing, then you jump up quickly and get covered up. So I don't know whether she still
I don't think that's a myth, though, because I think that's science. James.
You think that's
because
science?
And also if you sit there too long, you're going to warm the soil up and you're not going to be able to tell the difference, are you?
I don't think you want to sit there. If you can sit there too long, then it's warm enough already.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're.
But that's pure science. It's not a myth because you're talking about the temperature of the soil.
Yes, but it's also,
and when it's warm enough, with body temperature, you can sow seed into it. So
okay, so that's sort of.
I used to garden.
Proven science.
I used to garden with Antonia Sturgis. She was a hippie. She taught me how to garden. Really, years ago, I was a maintenance gardener for Gaylord and Merriweather before I moved into the landscaping division.
Of course.
Okay, and I worked with her about 18 months and drove the van and did the mowing and the raking of the leaves and all that sort of stuff. She's brilliant. Anyway, often a garden would have an overgrown elder in it, or an elder, and she wouldn't ever touch one. She would never
not
dig
prune
one
it
out
or anything.
No, if it was pruning, she'd do a little good pruning on it, but it was generally taking stuff out because it was seen as a weed. And so she wouldn't touch it, and I'd have to dig because it would give all the bad spirits would go into your body. And I think that's what's wrong with me.
Well, you're full of bad elders.
I think I've dug up a lot of elders in my time, and that's why, James, I'm evil.
Now he tells me.
I know, but that was a myth, and she really, really strongly believed that.
But I've had exactly that in Scotland with rowan trees.
Okay.
In that you should never dig up a rowan tree because otherwise you have bad luck forever and ever and ever and all those.
I've dug some of them up as well.
Yeah, well, exactly. No. But it's no. But you would. I think it's okay to dig them up if you're English.
Okay.
But none of the Scots would actually dig them up. So it's the same thing. It's an ancient thing, isn't it? Basically, of tree spirits and ents and all of that kind of stuff. So that I don't know whether that's myth or whether that's legend and what's the difference between the two of them. But I think what they're talking about is a myth. Is something that is blatantly not true. So the elder thing, yes, it could be right, and you could be much less evil person if you hadn't dug up the elders. And
I could be really nice. I could be a really nice guy now, James.
You could be a lot less grumpy than you actually are.
I could, it's ruined my life. Okay, Joe from Leeds. Do you think people are born with green fingers, or is it just trial, error, and compost in your hair? Well, my hair wouldn't hold much compost.
It's not a lot there. It would be very finely sieved.
It would just sort of all flake off. You could get a little bit on top.
Green fingers is an interesting thing. A lot of people say, "Oh, I can't grow that because I don't have green fingers," and I don't think I don't think anybody's particularly blessed in that way. That's a myth.
I think there's an affinity, and I do think it starts at childhood. And I think if you've gardened a bit with your grandparents and with your parents a bit, my dad was not a good gardener, but I like to think that my kids, even though that they're only getting into gardening now, and my granddaughter, I think that it's a confidence. I think it's a confidence thing ultimately, that you put a plant in the ground and you know what it needs and you can nurture it. So I think it's more sort of knowledge and confidence than actually having green fingers.
And experience and sort of learning as you go along. But yeah, you're right. I mean, my children as well, they've sort of grown up with gardening. And they have this sort of natural feel. They know how it works. They know what happens. They've seen it. They've seen it work. They've seen the evidence of us planting something and it becoming something to eat or something to look at or something to play with. But I don't think that anybody should ever say, "Oh, I haven't got green fingers. I can't grow anything."
But having said that, the question it is also trial, error, and compost in your hair. It's
trial and error, definitely.
There's a lot of trial and error going on.
There's always things that we try and they don't quite work. There's other.
And if you've got compost in your hair, you're sort of doing the wrong thing with the compost. So maybe you could start with a gardening book or two, and maybe not put the compost in your hair. Maybe put it in a pot or on the ground.
It would be more useful, and then you would never run out. Although, alternatively, you can put hair in your compost heap. So it goes the other way, because hair obviously will compost down eventually.
Yeah. Well, okay, that's very good advice. Thank you, James. I'll think about that next time I trim my beard. Well, thanks for joining us. Hope you enjoyed it.
It was fun, wasn't it?
It was.
What you can also do is that every day, the daily lessons that you will find on Scribehound Gardening will be up here as well. So don't forget to come back for them. And what we'd like you lot to join in this conversation as well. And what they need to do is to email us at
gardening@scribehound.com.
That's the one. Send us in your gardening questions on whatever subject you possibly want. Come and subscribe to Scribehound Gardening by looking at the link in our bio. And also, if you come back every day, if you're a subscriber, you'll be able to listen to the articles read by the authors. À bientôt.
Oh, French.